Thank you so much, Kagiri. Good morning. So everyone who's also listening and catching up with us on Zoom, good morning or good evening or good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. My name is Shiro Morioki. I'm a journalist. I am also an endometriosis warrior. That's what we call ourselves. We don't call ourselves sufferers or victims. We call ourselves warriors. And today being World Endometriosis Day and coming at the tail end of Endometriosis Awareness Month, we feel like this is the best time to have this incredibly timely discussion about this condition that affects 1 in 10 women globally. But first, before we get started, I would want our panel to introduce themselves. I'm giving you 10 seconds each. I'm saying 10 seconds because Doris Nakujua. Let's start with you, Kezia.
Hi everyone, I'm Kezia Mumbi. I'm an endo warrior. I am a data engineer, and I'm just chilling. It's like I don't know. Yeah, it's nice to meet you all.
We'll get to know you a bit better, Kezia. Daktari?
My name is Charles Muteshi. I'm a gynecologist and a subspecialist in subfertility. I also do lots of endometriosis here at Aga Khan University.
All right. My friends.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Doris Moremi. I'm an endo, even an adeno warrior as well, and the founder of Endo Sisters East Africa Foundation.
Yeah. Finally, Daktari?
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Joanne is my name. I'm OBGYN here in Aga Khan University Hospital.
Perfect. Let's give our panelists a hand. All right, now I think the best place to start this conversation before we even start talking about the disorders is talking about what a normal period is. And I think I'll start with you, Dr. Okam.
The menstrual cycle starts with the shedding of blood, which will take about maybe 1 to 5 days. It varies from person to person. There are people who may have a longer time of bleeding, others have a shorter time of bleeding. And then after that, it's followed by what we call follicular phase, which is just the preparation stage of the body or the uterus being prepared to get pregnant. And then that is followed by ovulation, which happens around mid-cycle. Again, varies from person to person, depending on the length of your cycle. So after ovulation, the next phase is what we call luteal phase, which is further preparation of the body or the uterus for a pregnancy. And these may go on for about 14 days. And if pregnancy doesn't happen now, the inner lining of the womb, which has been prepared for all this time, is broken down and is shed now as your menses, and the cycle starts again.
Okay, so that is a normal cycle. Dr. Muteshi, what are the things that would make you as a doctor say, this is a normal?
Some periods can be really miserable. And when I say miserable, that means that you may have periods that are very, very heavy. So, you're bleeding endlessly, having to use so much pads, and that just interferes with your quality of life. Sometimes pain can be excruciating. So period pains can be mild in majority of individuals, but when it becomes so much that it affects what you're doing naturally, then that is not normal. And of course, if you are not seeing periods every month, like maybe most of your peers, then you will want to know, why is it that the frequency of my periods is not as regular as I would expect it to be?
Okay, so I think this is now time to talk to our warriors, right? So I'll start with you, Kezia. At what point did you realize that you were not having a normal period?
I guess I realized it's around class 8. Like Dr. Muteshi said, talking with my classmates and them being like, it's kind of weird that you're constantly changing your pad, and you'd be like, okay, mine is heavy, and realizing that this was not normal, that people do have regular periods. So I felt like something was off. And by the time I reached high school, now the pain accompanied it, where I could barely pay attention in class. I'd have to be pulled out of class because I was crying or puking or one or the other. I'd have to miss days of school. So at this point is when I realized, okay, there's something not right.
Yeah. Doris, what was that aha moment for you where you said, this is not normal? Yeah.
Yeah. So just like Kezia, I was 12 years old. I was already in high school. 12, 13, just turned 13, and looking forward to starting my periods like other girls. And then, but when it came, I was just shocked that nobody ever told me it was painful because, everyone was excited about it. And I wondered why my experience was different from the very first period. And then I had erratic periods, it comes in February, then the next time is August. That's how it started. But when it was coming, it was very heavy, like 7-day heavy, and lower back pain, and also feeling, pelvic pain, and so that's how I started feeling the pain. And at that time, I realized, I suspected something may be wrong. And so I asked my mom to take me to see a gynecologist, and she did. I saw 4 actually. But all of them said, well, this is the time these girls, when they get their period, sometimes some of them can bear the pain, others cannot. So this one, she just let her take a painkiller so that she's able to bear the pain. So it was assumed that it was a very normal part of menstruation.
Yeah. So now we've talked about what a normal period is and the point at which you start thinking, okay, maybe I'm not having a normal period. But now we're here to talk about endometriosis. Dr. Muteshi, can you give us the endometriosis for dummies?
My years of working with endometriosis, I've tried to come up with what I would call, what is the lay definition of endometriosis? And I know everybody says, it's abnormal cells that lie wherever they are. But I think, I would like to think these are abnormal cells that are similar or originate from, menstrual cells, as Joanne says, period kind of cells. But when they go elsewhere, they may cause burns or chemical burns inside, and that's the experience you have. And those who've had pain, it's indistinguishable from something like a burn. If I burn your skin, it will feel the same way that you feel in your pelvis. So to me, and that is a process of burning because it's the chemicals in the body that come from those cells that will cause burning. So it will be deep in the pelvis, and it may involve probably just cramps in the lower part of your tummy. You might have pain when you use the toilet, for example, if you go to pass urine or if you open your bowels. And there are instances where you might find endometriosis is not only found in the pelvis. There are girls who come in and they'll say, I have noticed that my belly button or the umbilicus swells every time I have a period. Or I've got this very unusual chest pain every time I see my period. So those are things that will make you suspect maybe there is endometriosis.
Doris, earlier you told me something completely shocking. How long did it take you to be diagnosed with endometriosis?
It took me 33 years to get a diagnosis.
Wow.
Yeah.
33 years. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So I started having the symptoms when I was 12, 13. And as I said, because the doctor said that, there was nothing wrong, I just thought the problem was that I had a low pain threshold.
Yeah.
So I continued. And later on, when I was in college, I decided to go and see another gynecologist. I was just taking painkillers. I was put on painkillers. But I had very, very heavy flow to the extent that even when I was in class, if I stood up, I would have messed my
You would have had an accident.
Yes, I would have had an accident. I had an extremely heavy flow. So I continued bleeding, and now in my working years, now this is like 20, first of all, initially 25 years later, I'm in my maybe late 30s then. And what I did is I went to see a doctor because of extremely heavy bleeding and almost becoming anemic. And that's at that time, they found that I had adenomyosis. That is what I was initially diagnosed with. Again, painkillers and just told, okay, take care of yourself, anemia, and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it was in 2014, almost 8 years post that time, that I then collapsed in my doctor's office because of I had endometriomas, the cyst, ovarian cyst, chocolate cyst, as they are called, and I had a lot of pelvic. The endometriosis was there. Mm. So it was at that point that I was diagnosed. I was known. Actually, luckily for endometriomas, it is seen when you go for the scan and if you were able to pick it. Then, of course, I went for the laparoscopy and henceforth. So that was my first time ever to hear about endometriosis.
Wow.
And yes,
33 years.
and that was 33 years. Yeah.
Kezia, could you tell us a bit about your experience? I know you told me that you had to put your foot down and like advocate for yourself. So can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Okay, so when I was in high school, I noticed that, I was crying, missing days of school. So I went and saw the first doctor.
Mm-hmm.
They told me, no, this just happens with adolescents and whatnot. It'll ease, as you're getting older. And also when you give birth, which is, a common misconception,
Yeah.
that when you give birth, the pain will go away. Fast forward, I finish high school. It's not going, it's getting worse. Now I'm having daily pains, constant bleeding. At some point, I couldn't even track my period because it was just heavy bleeding for
Like throughout.
2 to 3 weeks at a time, light bleeding for 1 week. Then it just starts over. I was anemic. I was jumping from hospital to hospital, just begging someone to believe me. I remember one lady HR told me, like, okay, you can't be missing work because of your period. Are you the first person in the world to ever have a period?
Wow.
And why is your period more special than any other woman in this office? So you have to miss work for it.
Wow.
Which made me feel like, okay, is it the pain threshold? Is it my pain threshold that's not...
Yeah. Yeah, like am I just being a baby?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just kept pushing. I'd be told the same thing. No, it's just normal heavy period. At this point, I'm using the injection. I was begging multiple hospitals, multiple doctors. So finally, after about 7 years of just jumping from hospital to hospital, I finally I came to Aga Khan and I was like, I want to see a lady doctor, please. The best you have, someone who can listen to me. And that's when I was introduced to Dr. Joanne, who looked at me, listened to my story, believed me, which was, I think, the most important part.
Yeah.
By the time we were doing the scans, there were endometriomas and cysts that had grown all over. By the time, actually, just shortly after, she pushed for a surgery to be done. And turns out that the endo had grown so far out of my uterus, it had conjoined my bladder and my bowels together.
Oh.
So even when I was telling doctors, like, I'm in pain all the time, I can, like, even if you press my stomach, I'd flinch. So yeah, it's common misdiagnosis and not believing patients, I guess, is what...
Yeah, Dr. Muteshi, I can see you shaking your head. But that is a kind of a damning indictment on your colleagues. But I want, like, from you and Dr. Joanne, why is there such a gap between like the onset of symptoms and diagnosis? Why is there such a gap?
Endometriosis doesn't stand out, screaming at you to say, yeah, this is directly endometriosis. Symptoms are not classical. But more importantly, I think, for endometriosis is the chronicity. How long has it been? There are many things that can cause pain, but if you have a random acute onset severe pain, we can look for infection, we can look for other bits. But when you say I've been having pain for many years, then we have to think. But unfortunately, even the tests that we would like to do, they are not easily accessible. You would need to have something. You say, I would need an ultrasound scan. Not everyone is able to, perform the scan and see the exact areas of endometriosis because they all don't look the same. Doris says here she had a cyst on her ovary. She had her bowels stuck to everything else. So they all look different. So you need to actually be very well trained to pick it. And of course, it is always better to do an internal ultrasound scan, which we call the vaginal ultrasound. Not every girl or lady is suitable for that. Very young ones may not be suitable for that type of ultrasound scan. And of course, years ago, we used to say laparoscopy is the way to make a diagnosis. It's having to go to theater, someone to put a telescope and look inside. We've kind of moved away from that. But how many places would have a laparoscopy? And even if they did, how many doctors would there be? So all these are systemic problems that you can't really pinpoint to one factor.
Yeah.
But we are hoping that, the noise that is being made around the awareness is turning things around, and we are not going to be taking 33 years to make a diagnosis of endometriosis.
All right. How do you manage endometriosis for an 18-year-old? Dr. Muteshi?
Yes, so when I see my patients, the first thing is to, ask them what is bothering you the most, because you want to approach it from the point of relieving their most distressing symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whereas you would like to make a diagnosis and say you might have endometriosis, the focus is not on the disease, it's on the person and what is bothering them the most.
Yeah.
And once you establish that, then you come up with a plan of care, because if we think it's endometriosis, we do not have a permanent cure. And so whatever we give, we offer, even if it's surgery or medications, they may relieve symptoms and make you comfortable. So we sit and have a plan and say, you are currently in college or you're about to finish and you need a career in future. This is what you might want to be using. And some girls at that age may be very happy to say, I want to have normal periods. I don't want to have pain. I want to feel well. And I can go, say, on the pill. And the pill is not a dangerous, chemical or medicine. It can be used for various reasons, including controlling menstrual pains. And it can be taken for many years. Now, it doesn't cure the problem. It makes you comfortable as you, go through life.
It handles the symptoms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So once they reach another point and say, I think I want to settle down and have children, of course, the pill is contraceptive. So come off the pill. If the pain comes back, then what else do we do? At that point, you may think, okay, perhaps we can go in and, do surgery and remove the disease. But there will be instances where an operation could be needed without delay. For example, if you establish they have very extensive endometriosis, which affects the bowels, it affects the kidneys, those ones will require to be operated on urgently. And of course, it will need to be in a specialized center where there is a capability for that type of surgery.
Right.
And beyond the operation, again, you sit and say, what is the plan after this?
Yeah, that's great.
Download Odibets app na unaweza kujishindia hadi 50,000 bob kila siku.
This is NTV.
Tonight.
Naona wengine wamekasirika. CDF anaongea siasa. CDF hakuongea siasa. Alisema vile katiba inasema.
Those two gentlemen are speaking from information. They are warning you, they are warning your country, they are warning your future.
National security or political meddling. Interior Cabinet Secretary warns Kenyans against ignoring remarks by Chief of Defence Forces General Charles Kahariri and NIS Director Nurdin Haji on anti-government chants. Also tonight,
so the government is keeping me too much. Wameniweka sana na hii search yao. So I want to know.
Tuko na officer yetu ule bado ako missing na bado tunazidi kutafuta na tumpata.
A distraught family and an unending search for a missing police officer. Government urged to come clear on the whereabouts of Benedict Kabiru, who went missing last week. Plus,
we pray that Allah eases all the challenges that our citizens and our country is facing, and I am sure going forward you will see it.
United in faith. End of the holy month of Ramadan. Muslims worldwide join in Eid al-Fitr celebrations. And
Msichana wa Agnes anaulizaga kwa nini huyu mtu alimfanya mama yake hivyo. Ameshikwa. Ninamwambia hapana, hajashikwa.
Is a case whereby the government has been reluctant to have it concluded.
The cost of injustice. Agnes Wanjiru family's quest for justice remains unwavering 13 years after her murder.
Because like right now, after you've had your surgery, what does your day-to-day look like now? And did the surgery offer you immediate relief?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
So my day-to-day is just...
Because like right now, after you've had your surgery, what does your day-to-day look like now? And did the surgery offer you immediate relief?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
So my day-to-day is just managing, keeping myself healthy, because I do know that it's chronic. The surgery just helped ease the pain.
All right. So someone has asked, and I think Dr. Muteshi will respond to this, is there a cure for endometriosis?
We hope one day we'll have a cure, because if we understand how it comes about, then we might venture into that type of interventions. But at the moment, we don't have a cure for endometriosis. We manage endometriosis. And it's important to notice that endometriosis affects women in their reproductive age, meaning right from adolescent through to menopause. So it's not just at one point in time. So you have to be looking at it as a life course event.
Someone has asked, this is such an interesting question, how soon should I try for a child after an endometriosis excision surgery that resulted in my right fallopian tube being removed?
One of the beauty about excision surgery, and we are collecting now evidence, is that if it's well done and you have the inside of the pelvis tidied up and everything is disentangled, and there isn't much pain, it actually improves the prospects of getting pregnant within 36 months. That's about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so personally, I wouldn't start off anyone who has fertility desires after an operation. So I do operate on them and let them feel better from the operation and carry on trying to get pregnant as soon as possible. Okay. So there isn't any, lag time. Yeah, as soon as you feel comfortable to try. But there is good evidence that may improve your chance of getting pregnant.
Are there any organizations that help the underprivileged in accessing care for endometriosis? Because, of course, you're in advocacy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, our organization, unfortunately, we are not funded so that we can be able to help people in terms of, seeing the doctors, paying for their medical consultations. But we do provide a lot of information. We do provide a lot of networks to the doctors. And also, even where there are doctors who are maybe doing, particular initiatives that would help in cost cutting for patients, we ensure that we share that even with our members. So that's the kind of support that we give, and particularly educational support, so that they learn about how they can help themselves and learn even from the other support members who are part of the group, because there's a lot of learnings that goes on, and a lot of information sharing that just helps other people in terms of how they can manage.
All right. So there is a misconception here in your book, Doris, and it also goes hand in hand with a question that we've been asked about a hysterectomy or removing the uterus can cure endometriosis. Dr. Joanne, is that true?
Not exactly. We have said there's no cure for endometriosis, right? We only manage the symptoms. Sometimes removing the uterus may help relieve the symptoms significantly, but also it also depends on the damage that has already happened. For example, the scarring that has been mentioned here. If the damage has already happened, even removing the uterus itself doesn't necessarily make sure that now you are absolutely fine. You may still have symptoms.
All right. So I'm going to now put it out to the audience if anyone has questions.
Just listening to you, I'm just wondering, maybe could we all have had endometriosis at some point and then it disappeared? I'm just wondering. I think that sort of tells you how old I am. And then in line with what he's asking, is it a case of, would I call it bad luck? Or is there a kind of person who would be, do you use the word predisposed to endometriosis?
I think your first question is an interesting one. And I think from, my scientific curiosities, I would say yes, but it shouldn't cause worry. Because if you look at, the origins of the cells that go on to form the womb lining, they come from somewhere else and then they will attach themselves. They are kind of more like assembling a car. You don't make car parts from the same place, but they all come from everywhere and then they make a car. Some of them drop off along the way and they will just span away and then that's it. But a number of them will stay and maybe eventually cause symptoms. But it's only about 10% of ladies who then eventually, get the symptoms. And are there any risk factors that they exhibit that make them slightly different? Perhaps yes. We're honestly trying to answer this question, and it'll be interesting to know that there is a genetic study that is underway that we're carrying out to try and see if there is any link between our genes and the risk of developing endometriosis. It is known if you have a family history of endometriosis, you are probably slightly more likely to have endometriosis than someone else who does not have a family history of endometriosis. Maybe if periods begin very early, they are short cycles and heavy, you might be predisposed to, having endometriosis. So there's a lot of work going on to answer these questions. But at the moment, I think I would say, yes, there is some promise that we are seeing some light.
As Kezia said, we should not be afraid to see the word periods. We need to support each other as women. We need the men in our lives to support us as well. We also need the people in the working space to understand that not all periods are the same. Some periods are more difficult than others, and to provide the necessary support. And finally, give yourselves a hand for being here this morning. Thank you very much.